Welcome to Part 2 of the Bayview Area presentation on the planning concept. It will provide an overview and highlight the key elements of the emerging planning concept. The purpose of this demonstration plan is to help visualize how the Bayview Station area may develop over the next 20 years. This is not a legal document, and all elements shown are conceptual, including street layouts and buildings. No actual development proposals are represented in this plan. Its goal is to illustrate the design principles and policies of the CDP. The LRT alignment, station location, and design shown in this presentation is a preliminary concept, subject to change or modification as the LRT project progresses. The planning concept for the Bayview area envisions a revitalized community, rich with residential, commercial, and community facilities. Traveling between the LRT station and your neighborhood should be a pleasant experience, both safe and comfortable. Join us as we travel through the following slides and take a look into the exciting future for this area. As with most developments, we start underground. Such is the case in the Bayview area, where many major trunk lines exist. This is a complex situation as shown on this map. For example, the two thick blue lines represent pipes that deliver clean drinking water to approximately 60% of residents and businesses within the City of Ottawa. And there are smaller local pipes in the area as well. A master service study is currently being conducted, and its preliminary conclusions find that the capacity of these existing trunk pipes is sufficient for the development suggested in the CDP. From an operational perspective, there is no need to relocate any of the existing pipes. Relocating existing pipes would provide more and easier to develop land, but the cost of relocation is high. It is estimated that to relocate all existing pipes to the municipal right-of-way will cost about $33 million. The Master Service Study recommends an incremental approach to maintain and improve the serviceability of the major trunk infrastructure, relocating and improving pipes on a site-by-site basis. This is the more common approach to development within the urban area. The Master Servicing Study will develop guidelines for the review of such site-specific infrastructure plans, as well as on stormwater management issues related to proposed development in specific parts of the CDP area. Given these recommendations, we can move back up above ground. One of the key goals of the CDP is to ensure good connections with the LRT station and throughout the community. These yellow lines illustrate the existing street network found throughout the study area. East-west streets like the Ottawa River Parkway, Scott Street, Somerset Street, and north-south streets like Bayview, Bayswater, Preston, and Booth Street. In addition to streets, the red lines show two dedicated pathway systems, the Ottawa River Pathway and Scott Street. As elaborate as these existing networks appear, there are some large gaps preventing connections. Several superblocks of property, like Bayview Yards, the NCC lands, City Centre lands, and Tom Brown Arena, prevent east-west connections between the neighborhoods of Dalhousie and Hintonburg, and north-south links between Scott and Somerset Streets. The area is effectively quartered when you add in the Old Train Line, Scott, and Albert Streets. The first component of the CDP is to ensure that development reconnects this area by introducing a street size and pattern to the superblocks similar to the historic communities in the area. This lays the foundation for a more flexible network and encourages pedestrian and cycle travel. This street grid will also be integrated with the grid at the NCC's LeBreton Flats development. The second component to ensure better connections is to implement multifunction pathways as a part of new developments or public works projects. The third element is to design through-block passages in new development. Pedestrians will find an efficient connection to the LRT from various locations. We have demonstrated an interconnected network of streets and pathways for all modes of transportation. Now let's take a look at this network from a pedestrian's point of view. Introducing short, dense street blocks is the most important measure to ensure a walkable environment in the proposed historic grid pattern. Sidewalks will be installed along both sides of these streets in most cases, and also contribute to a safe pedestrian environment. The off-road multifunction pathway systems will offer a differing walking experience along the north-south LRT line, the Albert Scott Corridor, and through the Breton Flats. Through-block passages on privately owned lands will increase accessibility to the LRT station. The area will also be served by a well-connected cycling network. Dedicated off-road cycling lanes have been installed along Ottawa River and Scott Street. In the future, this system will be extended along Albert Street through the Breton Flats and along the north-south LRT, linking the Ottawa River and Dawes Lake. Passages accessible to bikes will be introduced on privately owned properties, providing direct access to the Bayview LRT station. The City Cycling Plan identifies a number of spine cycling routes along Scott, Somerset, Bayview, Bayswater, and Booth Streets. To make the area even more accessible to cyclists, the CDP proposes 2 community cycling routes that will complement the spine routes. They are Wellington Street between Somerset Square and Breeze Hill, and City Centre Drive between Albert and Somerset. The cycling lane along City Centre Drive also has the potential to extend further south. While providing designated cycling routes, the CDP is also proposing that all the streets adjacent to this area be designed as cycling-friendly streets. The open space system is another key urban design element for the CDP and will often define the physical character of the community, having a significant impact on residents' quality of life. Urban open space may include natural areas, parks, squares, and may also include publicly accessible private spaces such as pedestrian malls and commercial plazas. The Ottawa River is one of the defining characteristics of the Bayview area. This will be further enhanced through the implementation of the Green Corridor, home to the LRT and the multifunction pathway. Trees and vegetation will offer a habitat to urban adapted species and provide an almost unobstructed view between Dawes Lake and the Ottawa River. There are many good examples of such linear green space around the world, such as this one from Hague in the Netherlands, where multiple modes of transportation are accommodated in a green tree-lined corridor. The Jubilee Park in London, England, though not a linear space, is a good illustration of the contribution an urban park can make to a high-density environment. Active and passive parks are another major feature in the open space system. As the city intensifies and the character of the community evolves, the demands for parks will also increase and change. Recognizing that there are limited opportunities within the Bayview area to create new large active parks, the CDP proposes a strategy that will be focused on revitalizing and enhancing the existing parks to meet the need for active sports activities at La Roche Park and Tom Brown. As development occurs, new urban parks will also be introduced through the Park Land Dedication Bylaw and the Planning Act. These urban parks and squares may not be large enough to accommodate traditional, large sports facilities, but will provide areas for rest, gathering, performing, and exercise. In addition to publicly owned green spaces and parks, there are many opportunities to create urban squares, plazas, and passages on private lands, and they are an integral component of the open space system in a city. There are many good examples of such spaces in Ottawa and around the world. The space in front of the World Exchange Plaza in downtown Ottawa is an excellent example of a publicly accessible urban square on private lands. The atrium of the BEC Place in Toronto is an example of publicly accessible space within an enclosed environment. In Ottawa, a series of urban mews in the Byward Market area, known as the NCC Courtyards, is another excellent example of a connected linear public space that provides a variety of different functions to the urban environment. In most cities, public streets account for about 30% of the urban built environment and should be recognized and designed as the most important public spaces in the city. In the Bayview area, opportunities exist to design streets with different characteristics, reflecting the unique settings and neighborhoods. 5 types of different characteristics can be developed. Somerset Street is a traditional main street. It will continue to rejuvenate itself to become a more vibrant, pedestrian-friendly street with a variety of thriving retail services forming a continuous store frontage along both sides of the street. The Scott-Albert Corridor, by virtue of its width and functionality as a major arterial road, has the potential to evolve into a grand boulevard with greenery, activities, and buildings of exceptional quality. Champs-Élysées, one of the most famous boulevards in the world, may be a tough act to follow, but the streetscape and cross-sections may provide inspiration for how a very wide arterial should be designed. A thoroughfare can become a pleasant public space. McGill College Avenue in Montreal is a good example of an urban boulevard in a high-density, high-rise environment. Generous sidewalks, densely planted street trees, public arts, and coordinated street furniture turn a traffic thoroughfare into a pleasant boulevard that is suitable for human activities. When the time comes, Tom Brown Arena should be expanded to provide more services to the community. The expansion should bring the building closer to Scott Street, and a main entrance located off the bridge will provide a direct and convenient connection to the LRT station. City Centre Drive and Bayview Road north of Scott will be developed as two neighborhood high streets. Unlike traditional main streets, stores and services are oriented to local residents. By making these facilities available locally, residents and workers do not have to travel outside of the neighborhood to get these essential daily goods. The locally oriented services also ensure no through traffic will be attracted to the neighborhood street. This picture of Vancouver's North False Creek demonstrates the potential character of such a neighborhood high street. Of course, a neighborhood high street may take a completely different built form without losing its important ingredients. Unique to the Bayview area is the potential to develop a series of local vistas through the Bayview Yards and City Centre lands. As shown in these Vancouver examples, development along these local streets will be of medium to high profile. Architectural treatments will focus on maintaining the human experience as the top priority. Each street will have a vista featuring one of the major landscapes in this community, providing residents and office workers an opportunity to appreciate the unique natural and urban settings. The last type of street is called a terrace, with development on one side and public open spaces on the other. These streets are integrated into the public open space, making it more accessible and creating a unique character along the urban edge. There are numerous examples of terraces, such as the Cole Harbour of Vancouver and Jardin de Saint-Roch in Quebec City. As indicated previously, the entire area around the Bayview LRT station is designated for mixed use. This land use designation permits and encourages a variety of different transit-supportive uses, including office, residential, and commercial. The following diagrams illustrate concepts for the use and function of the area. The bubbles used here do not represent the zoning boundaries. The greatest influence on development in the Bayview Station area is the LRT station. Tall buildings should be located at the crossroads of the LRT and Albert Street, where office and commercial uses benefit from the convenient access to the LRT station. The yellow ovals shown here represent mid to high-profile residential uses and complementary services. Residential uses are crucial for the success of a mixed-use center, providing a well-balanced live-work destination and round-the-clock LRT use. Low to medium-height residential buildings provide a transition on the western periphery of the Bayview Yards from the high-density node at the LRT station. This low to medium-height mixed-use district will ensure an appropriate transition to the existing residential community east of City Centre Drive. Along Somerset, we see the building profile and land use as described for traditional main streets. Maintaining and enhancing the active parks and open space at La Roche Park and Tom Brown Arena is essential in this area where there will be significant increases in mixed-use development. The NCC lands north of the LRT have been designated for a national cultural institution. The Bayview area is going to see many exciting developments with overlapping functions and activities. They will help to form a mixed-use urban destination around the Bayview LRT station that will support each other and reduce the demand for travel. Let's look at the general building profile of this design concept. The following images will show where the main density will be, as well as the transitions from high to low density. This is a view from across the Ottawa River. Development at City Centre and the property known as 801 Albert is on the left. Development at Bayview Yards is on the right. The tallest buildings are located at the intersection of two LRT lines. The height of the buildings then begins to transition to lower profiles as they move away from this center. This view is from the west, looking east along Scott Street, looking east along Wellington Street, south of the north-south LRT corridor, looking west roughly along Elm Street. Proper transition from the highest density to the existing stable neighborhoods is a key principle of this CDP. The following slides will illustrate two different strategies for providing transition. On the east side of the north-south LRT line, we need to weave together the existing community with new development as illustrated in this view. First, locate the tallest and biggest buildings at the LRT station and gradually decrease height and scale towards the neighborhood. These tall buildings will be designed to enhance the skyscape and reduce possible adverse wind and shadow impacts on the surrounding streets. A 3 to 4 story building base will occupy the extensions of Spruce, Elm, and Melrose Streets through the city center lands. Architectural details and main floor units will help to mesh these structures with the existing neighborhood buildings. These strategies are clearly illustrated in these examples found in Toronto. This development on Church Street offers significant reduction in heights. By using similar materials and architectural details, a continuous and consistent base is created among these buildings of different height and scale. Finally, this example of Radio City illustrates how the base of a high-rise complex can be made more appealing with ground-level units and attention to height profiles. On the other side of the north-south LRT line, the situation is quite different. The Green Corridor and city parks form a buffer between the high-rise development on the east side of the LRT and the neighborhood on the west side of the LRT. In the foreground are the existing buildings in the Hintonburg area. In this drawing, we see the relationship between the low-scale existing buildings in the Mechanicsville neighborhood and the high-density development at the city's Bayview yards. Between them is La Roche Park. You've just seen the key ingredients of the planning concept for development around the Bayview LRT station. Over time, the area will be developed as an important destination on the city's rapid transit network with an exciting variety of activities and desirable communities. The following illustrations highlight the potential for this area. 1.3 million square feet of office and commercial spaces can be accommodated at the property known as 801 Albert Street. East of the Bayview LRT station, there is a potential to develop 320,000 square feet of mixed-use area, likely housing, office, and complementary services. According to the council-approved planning concept, the city-owned Bayview Yards may see the development of 1.7 to 2 million square feet of housing, office, commercial, and community services, subject to further environmental investigations. Tom Brown Arena, over the long term, could be expanded to provide enhanced services to the community. The privately owned city center lands will have the potential to develop about 1.3 million square feet of office, residential, commercial, and other spaces as permitted under the current zoning bylaw. East of City Center Drive, the development potential is estimated at about 500,000 square feet of office, residential, commercial, and other uses. The LRT station itself will be constructed as a single-level structure in the immediate future. In the long term, it has great potential to see an integrated development of up to 1 million square feet expanding perhaps for office space above. In total, the development potential in the area is estimated at 6.1 to 6.5 million square feet. This would mean the new community may be home to thousands of new jobs and residents. There is great potential in the Bayview Station area to evolve into a thriving, well-balanced community. This CDP has been developed to ensure this potential embraces the historic character while planning for a bright future. Thank you for viewing this presentation, and please take a few minutes to provide your feedback on this planning concept. Your comments and suggestions will be very valuable in helping the CDP team develop the draft CDP.